Hello, welcome back. It's time. Another GM Facepalm episode. Bringing you some options, some frustrations to your table. Maybe frustrations as you try to get through this video. The rambling, the clash of different things that just kind of vaguely go over the AP itself, maybe. Anyway, we'll try to stay away from that today and go right into Iron Gods review for Book 2, Lords of Rust, Pathfinder RPG adventure path here. I just finished up Book 1, Fires of Creation, and about to start Book 2 this Saturday, so it's going to be pretty exciting. This book comes across a lot like Fallout, if you're familiar with the video games. Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, whatever it is. There's a few of them. Anyway, particularly more with like the different types of gangs or factions when you encounter them, when you interact with them, and the different options, whether to ally with them, rather to maybe rally against them, change your options, your alliances here and there, and depend on what your reputation level is. Has that Fallout feel to it. Nevertheless, you do have that backdrop as well, with the barren wasteland, the junk, the scrap, all about. That is a consistent background in Lords of Rust. So let's get right to it. Here we go. Great cover art. Really good cover art. They do a really particularly good job of the NPC art, or the main bad guy art, Anyway, there's a lot of interest and draw to it. Generates a lot of excitement. Let's get to it. Lords of Rust. There's some great backstory to it that kind of divulges more of the lore, the 9,000-year-old content there. And there are some options, some vague things that you can do to lure the group away from Torch and to investigate the power relay source, the area known as Scrap Wall. There's a little bit of lore around that. And it's a great opportunity, a great time maybe to take use of that campaign setting book, The Lands of Numeria, particularly with the environment hazards presented therein, and with the random encounters. You can use those. You can use the random encounters presented from Torch as far as the surrounded lands. And there's some encounters in here, particularly if you get closer to Scrapwall or if you are in Scrapwall. There's some great content there. Whether you set these up on your own, stage them out, or if you're going to go more of the roll the dice to see what the outcome of the events are. So anyway, as you're traveling through the barren wasteland riddled with little pockets of time-worn technology or technological ruins, you get to come across a little bit of a theme, a flair, a remembrance from an AP before, particularly Wrath of the Righteous. If you're familiar with that, as you come across Wayward Crusaders or a outpost, the Iomodean knights, a host of knights here, and there's a great little siege to it, particularly with a portcullis or gate. And for tabletop games, for local groups, I could see a lot of imagination come alive there, particularly with the map, and particularly with that gate. A lot of somewhat of a castle siege feel to it. So that's quite nice. This book 2 has a lot of sandbox feel to it. That's a term that a lot of players recognize. There's a lot of that to it. And they have a potential random encounter, or I should say alternate encounter, whether you wish to use that or not. But Book 2 is riddled with lots of combat. Extreme amount. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Varied thematic encounters as well, so you're not coming across just one type of theme constantly. And for a lot of people, this might put them off because it may be more of a story-driven game where combat is very vague, very, very rare. So this kind of book could be potentially bad for them, could put them off. Either way, you can just take out those encounters and, build upon your story even more for storytelling aspects, for the role of the GM or players alike. But I think it's a good mix of both. There's a lot of opportunity to present a lot of dialogue from the NPCs, and I think the APs do pretty good of at least throwing in some of the questions, some of the answers, even some of the remarks that they would say during the dialogue to maybe generate more interest with the GM and the players, and to kind of spark more imaginative flair to it, to get them more involved. And it does quite a great job of giving you hints on how to get the PCs involved. And if you have gunslingers involved, a particular PC who took up the slaying of the gun, there's a little bit of loot in here for them, particularly in the very beginning. So if they need that pistol or those bullets, and gold pieces are getting scarce, this is a good potential drop for them. I'd even go with like a Deadshot vest as part of a drop, just because you won't see too much. You didn't really see anything in Book 1 anyway, and maybe you would almost expect to because of the technological advances, even though it's still kind of a rare thing. But particularly with Torch and the metallurgy, the metalworks, there's a lot of sort of a pause to it as you kind of wonder about what advances have they made. Can there be some kind of Alkenstar type of theme here? Do pistols play some kind of a role? And I had to kind of address that recently by allowing the gunslinger to make a revolver, which is an advanced firearm. I would say only use the early firearms. Don't go with the advance, just because that will kind of put a damper on the technological guns, the items and gear. If you start to focus more on the advanced weaponry of the guns. So I would suggest just doing the early firearms, but I did allow him to use or to continue to go into the process of creating a revolver. So we'll see how that goes. I have had that before, and I've seen the disadvantages of it, the overpowered aspects of it, even though depends on the player really. And he did go over quite a few of the drawbacks for him even with using that. So I'm going to try and go the path of fairness here, trying to see where it goes anyway. So anyway, there's a lot of cannibalism in this book. Maybe that will get some of those Walking Dead people kind of interested. There are some undead in here. And I think a lot of the dialogues and such that should be approached in here. Addressing the party, determining their scrap worth, whether they are scrap worthy. That's a common term I think should be used in here, something that the games are very familiar with, something they should even use in their Dialogue, whether it determines someone's reputation, the way they carry themselves, determining their worth. And as far as scrap worth, there's a little entry in here to detail on that. It's a very, very minute, very, very small subsystem. Nothing to be fearful of, even particularly for those that fear subsystems, that hate them. This is just a simple little point system, point 1 through point 8. It just depends on the things that you do, how well you're carried, how well your reputation precedes you, and how people will react to you. Giving you some options there. Maybe giving you a sort of stacking up the sort of achievement anyway. But some great maps in here. There's a ton of maps, tons of different encounters. There's a lot of free roam to this. Sandbox nature. One particular map just featuring Scarwall alone. Each particular square is 400 feet, so that should give you some sort of a clue as to the wide expanse of the exploration here. It's a really good time to use those environmental hazards. A lot of that Numeria campaign setting book there. And you can kind of free roam here, explore. And what's nice about this book, I think a lot of people in Book 1 were really expecting some of the advanced class guide classes to be showcased. And you didn't really see that, and from what I read, it appeared that this was developed before the advanced class guide got really into it, particularly after the playtesting was already done for it. So, at least now in Book 2, you get to see some of those classes shine. You get to see you get to play with them, because for the most part the players are going to have, a great time with that, and the GM, can either do the work to try it out or just wait to see if something's already done for them. So you'll definitely see some use with the Brawler. There's a little bit of discussion on the forums about trying to convert the Rope Fist thugs from Book 1, trying to make them brawlers, which someone already posted stats for. But yeah, there's some here, and they're pretty cool. So you get to try those out. And of course, there's lots of different gangs or factions, as seen and similar with Fallout. Really unique classes here that you get to clash against, and you can determine who you want to ally with or not ally with. And if you're kind of missing Mayanda, the android cleric, maybe for some of those groups, or particularly the GM who are very fearful, that think that a cleric is the only way to survive in a group, that you have to have one in order to even play, sort of pushing aside the oracles or the alchemist, the white necromancer, whoever, bard. For those that think that the cleric has to be a viable party member, maybe missing that opportunity with Mayanda, perhaps if the party killed her. There's another cleric in here, NPC, that you can maybe have hopes for continuing the adventure with, maybe perhaps join the group. So there's one in here that's pretty cool. Although Book 1, particularly on the forums, talk a bit about sparing Mayanda and doing that long, arduous process of trying to redeem her. That's a very interesting, unique concept, since she is a very fascinating character. My group, well, at least one person, spared her life by reincarnating her, so we'll see how that plays out. But for those that do have her within the group, either as a prisoner or along the path of redemption to eventually become a steadfast ally, there's a lot of information that she can divulge to the group, particularly about Scrapwall, particularly about those who are the Lords of Rust, some of the gang interaction, or maybe even helping out with the exploration of the area. So there's a lot of information the GM can choose to be shed of, to not cloy in darkness, but to reveal to everyone. So there's that. Otherwise, Denvea, if I'm saying that name right, she has a real kind of cool techno look to her. A cleric or Bry. She could perhaps maybe join a group if they feel they need that cleric role, that healer role, the heal stick. Really, really interesting character. I think for those that missed Manda, if she happened to be killed off, there's a lot of NPCs that you can find a lot of great use, a lot of great utility with. Dialogues can be very intense, very exciting, bring a lot of draw in. So, Denvea is one of those, I think. Particularly how you enter her domain and the little skirmish that begins beforehand. I think that's kind of interesting. Kind of like a maybe Serenity feel to it, maybe. Maybe I'm kind of reaching there, but I see lots of different elements, lots of different themes here. Particularly when you're in sort of a environment of junk, of technological ruin, long ago, stripped of any value, or perhaps maybe rare hidden gems hidden therein. But for the bestiaries, you're going to get use out of Bestiary 1 all the way through 4. There's a lot of great usage there. That should be interesting. Especially since those that may find it too common to see the same things that are people that are used to, run into the critters from Bestiary 1 to maybe 3 even. So there's quite a lot of Bestiary 4 stuff in here, which you'll find interesting. And let's see. There's a lot of great characters in here. A lot of great maps. And I really like this one character, Whiskey Fist. There's a bit of a ratfolk community here. And on the forums, I think, online, there's a bit of a ratfolk community that hate the ratfolk. A lot of people don't like them. I don't have that problem. I think they're really cool. I've even imagined a few ratfolk characters for myself to use. Whiskey Fist is really, really interesting. It's going to be hard not to try and play him as a GM. I could see him being with the group for quite a long time. Maybe continuing the campaign. But he's described as a monster tamer, wrangler maybe, a monster trainer. So maybe there's that sort of Pokemon feel to it, maybe that Final Fantasy feel to it if you're aware of those name drops there. Particularly since it's said that he has a pet rust monster. So there's a real uniqueness to him, particularly because he is a ranger. So he has a lot of great abilities. He could really aid the group quite well, and he belongs to another faction or gang. So I could see him, really shining upon the group very, very well. I could see people taking a liking to him, particularly, except for those that really hate ratfolk. I don't know. But it would be interesting to see the exchange of dialogue, and particularly what to become of the rust monster pet there. That could be very interesting. But yeah, there's some unique interest in undead here. And keep in mind, the one thing I really should mention is that Book 1, there is a lot of time-worn technology. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. A lot of people are hating it. They don't have any use for the time-worn. They don't want to go with the chance of using the time-worn technology. Particularly with my group, I don't really feel hate from it, but they definitely feel it as useless. They're not using any of it. They're just selling it off, even with the knowledge that the value is half of what it could be. You're going to see quite a bit of time-worn tech here as well in Book 2. But keep in mind, there will be a few things that are not time-worn. And yeah. And, as the books progress, the time-worn, or I should say the technology, you're getting introduced to it more and more. It's not going to hit you right in the face as soon as you get into book 1. And for those that are fearful of the technology, I've had one player that just didn't like the technology, didn't want to have anything to do with it. They want a strict fantasy, Lord of the Rings prep style. But they are finding that they are really liking this. They are really excited by it. The fusion of science and fantasy here. And they're starting to realize that there is quite a lot of fantasy here. It's, the science doesn't slap you in the face. There's little pockets of it riddled here and there. And it comes across as very unique, very interesting. And it tells a great story in the backdrop of everything as you kind of explore and discover these items and what they do and see how it affects different cultures or different factions or societies. You get to see a small play on it, So I think even with book 2, they do a really good job of managing both. And I really don't think people that have an aversion to it, I don't think they're going to have a problem with it, for the most part. Well, there's a lot of different varied types of characters here. Some mutants, some undead, some technological creatures, some aliens. I particularly liked the skeletal technicians. It's a great unique story that could be told from that, just as told from book 1, where there's a crash, where there's a very old wreckage, a ship, and once again you get the chance upon the former inhabitants, maybe even putting together the story of what happened. A lot of that rubble, a lot of that waste, a lot of those crashed item supplies, maybe kind of thinking back to like Pitch Black, where all that rubble, all that cargo, cargo is strewn about a field of ruin, and you get to see what caused it and the effects of it and what remains lingering in its technological ruin. Really, really great art on that one. Let's see here. And there's some more things on your scrap worth and your reputation. And what's interesting about the main bad guy in this, he can talk to the PCs through the monitors or LCD TVs or whatever they are. However you want to describe what these devices are to the players. Samsung TV. Anyway, there's a lot of mystery, a lot of shroud upon the main bad guy. And what I like about it is that he gets to kind of persistently vex the group. Maybe just a lot of heavy dialogue. A great build-up to the final encounter. Whereas some things in the past, you get to the end and it's a swift conclusion. You're trying to have this dialogue with the main bad guy, and then of course you got the other players next to you. I want to kill him, let me at him, stop talking already. And you don't really get that chance to get everything out, to have that valued discussion, and in some ways get some kind of resolve from it, or maybe further clues to progress the story. A lot of players, I think, take quite a lot away from these big, huge encounters at the end with the main bad guy, when they get to kind of dissect the nature of the bad person and kind of maybe get like that backstory that you get in the back of the APs that you really don't get to elaborate on, discuss much. It's kind of more the information is kind of kept to the GM, and they get to sit there and revel in it, but not share that with anyone else for fear of spoiling the information. Well, with this one, with Helion, however you want to say it, I'm horrible with pronunciation, sorry. You get to kind of talk to the PCs as they're kind of getting further and further in. You know, you can try and thwart them, try and intimidate them, anger them. But this one is quite a good one because you get a mythic encounter out of this one, as this main bad guy has mythic ranks. So you get to utilize some of the mythic adventures here, the source book. I did a video about that, mythic adventures, particularly about Wrath of the Righteous, and there's a lot of excitement, a lot of draw to it, and I thought it worked out quite well, mythic adventures, and I'm really into it. I like it, and I just was rambling all over the place, kind of like I am now, bringing the face palms back to the forefront here. But I now realize that with mythic adventures, there's not really a balance to it. There's a very overpowered nature to it, particularly with the high-level aspects of it. High-level characters that have multiple mythic ranks. They're putting out 400 or 500 damage a round, and the encounters are only lasting a round. And then the GMs are troubled by this, face-palming by this, and they decide to double the hit points, triple the hit points, then telling the PCs they can't pick these particular pass abilities or whatever, disallowing a certain feat. And then they found out, well, yeah, combat's still 1 round, or maybe 2 rounds even. But then sometimes the bad guys are knocking them right out the same way that the PCs were, so I can't really get a balance to it. You know, it's chaotic and crazy and too fast. So I can sense some of that. I can see a lot of that, and you don't really see that in Wrath of the Righteous, particularly within the first couple books there. Since I think most of the play testing was geared more towards low to mid-level characters, and I don't think enough time was given to the higher level characters to see the aspects of the mythic ranks there. So anyway, I like it. I like mythic adventures. I like the mythic part of it because anyway, it's really good because you got, let's say, mid-level, like with here, they're approaching 7th level or whatever, and you want to use some of those more common, perhaps, or creatures from the bestiaries. You really like to use that CR3 or the CR4, but they're going to take them out, and what do? Do you decide to build up an advanced template? Do you add a couple of them to it, knowing that it's not going to be really much of an excitement to it? They've encountered this so many times before, but you really like these particular low-level creatures, but you can't introduce them because the PCs are too high. Well, I think with Mythic, you know, you get that low-level one, you add Mythic ranks to it, or choose the one that's already Mythic version of, and you get to throw that in and go right with those mid-level PCs, or maybe the low-level or slightly higher than mid-level, and you get a chance to throw those back in again. And sort of getting that theme, that sense that this particular mythic creature is a progenitor of the species, or maybe a unique rarity of its kind, one infused perhaps with wild or rare magic. So you finally get to use some of those, you get to recycle some of those older monsters that are too low level to fight, and finally you get to have them come to the forefront. And not only that, but have these really unique jaw-dropping abilities, those oohs and ahs that come to the group, as you see just how much destruction it can wrought upon them. And I've used Mythic before. Didn't really have the opportunity in Book 1 of Wrath of the Righteous, but I've used it extensively in Jade Region, particularly giving mythic ranks to the bad guys of Book 4, Book 5, and particularly all the bad guys at the end of Book 6. I think it's a great challenge to the PCs, especially when you know that they can take these on, and there's a balanced approach to it. You know that either side could win, so give them that sense of accomplishment as they, vanquish a mythic creature, entity. So with the main bad guy here, he has mythic ranks, and of course I usually hear this whenever a mythic creature is introduced. This is not a mythic adventure path. Why is there a mythic creature? Well, Pathfinder is now slowly introducing like 1 or 2 mythic creatures to their APs. I believe it was done in Mummy's Mask, which was largely just a regular campaign without the mythic part of it. So nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. It's still balanced. It's just got a few ranks. And there's a reason behind it as to why it can grant spells to its followers because of that mythic portion there. So there's a great understanding that can be felt as to why it is mythic. And I think the encounter is really great, especially for a Book 2 sort of event where you get to have that really great battle, that really great sense of superiority, of overwhelming power. You get to feel that right away. You don't have to wait to the later books to experience that. You get a really epic feel to it. You don't have to wait till 20th level or beyond 20th level to get that epic feel. Exhilaration. Yeah. So you definitely get that here, which I think is great. There's a lot of great Lords of Rust characters here. Have some really unique item drops. And the maps are fantastic. What else? Few robots, few aliens. I would definitely suggest an adamantine weapon, particularly for the hardness. There we go, hardness. Adamantine is a necessity, and that should have been explained during the player's guide of Iron Gods. At least 1 or 2 people have it, at least just to avoid any total party kills there. I think what really will draw a lot of interest, I think just from the book, the cover of the book alone with the chainsaw sword, I think it's just called chainsaw, but I'm going to call it chainsaw sword. I know that really generates a lot of buzz, and it's an awesome item, and especially when you get to see the iconic character wield it. Particularly on the covers of the later books, you get to see that, so that's great. Helion, however you want to say it. It's just a great encounter. The concluding adventure is really good. So I would say Denveya and Whiskey Fist are some really great NPCs here. And I could really see them as part of the continuing group or continuing campaign adventuring party there. Depending on the roleplay aspects of your group and their dialogues. But yeah, that chainsaw sword is just awesome. Just awesome. Definitely a great boon for a two-handed combatant. And there's a few unique Iron God treasures here, particularly the Mind Burner, the Envoy Mouthpiece, maybe the gas grenades, who knows. But there's definitely technological items riddled through the book, and it's still a sort of exploration, a orientation of getting used to it, discovering what the items or gear does. As you slowly start to collect more and more of it, it's not just going to be a quick, here you go, right in your face, get used to it. It's a great exploration to it. And what's really valued about this book 2 is you get a back of the book lore with the Technic League. Something I think was missing quite a bit. You'll get some of that from the campaign setting book, but there's more information on that in here, which is great. Talks about the history of the initiation, the ranks and hierarchy, membership. And also, finally, some information on Bry, the minor goddess, unknown origin, the patron of technologies. Bry, I think that's how you say it, yeah. So there's a little excerpt or information in here about that, about the priest's roles, temples and shrines, holidays, holy texts, all that stuff. Some spells, planar allies. Particularly since in book 1 you're kind of struggling trying to maybe get a sense of the theme for it. You can definitely get that here in book 2, getting that information here. Let's see if there's anything else I can really say about this without babbling too much. A few good bestiaries here. I thought the rust risen were quite well done. The Ruchalik, some kind of alien creature. A few more robots to add to your list. But that's it. I think I covered it. Hopefully that was some help to you. But I've got my hands on book 3 and book 4, and I'm starting to review those. I'll get a video out here soon for book 1. The book 1 that I did already, the video for that was haven't gone over it and experienced a little bit of it with running it, but I'll get another, like a part 2 to that one out there, just so I can go over my thoughts now, having completed the book, and maybe some added content or helpful information there, possibly. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. I am heavily trying to conquer this book, particularly with running map tools and macroing the encounters here and getting the map set up and all that. So I've been kind of away from my channel for a little bit, trying to tackle the enormity of book 2 here, but I'll be getting back to it soon with homebrew races maybe, since that seems to be the main focus, main draw of my very closed-minded channel, since I only deal with Pathfinder, which I'm all about, I love. So if you like that, stay tuned for more facepalming episodes. Till next time, see ya.